hand in hand.
Join us next time as we continue to explore Africa.
Africa awaits your discovery, a continent rich in diversity, culture, and wonder. Join us on a journey to explore
Street off Bademba Road in Freetown, Sierra Leone's capital. Coming up in the program today, over the weekend, journalists in Sierra Leone joined journalists across the world to commemorate the International Day to end impunity for crimes against journalists. United Nations says about 153 journalists have been killed in the line of duty between 2022 and 2023. Now we shall be discussing the day. Also, Budget Advocacy Network, BAN, calls on Parliament to dismiss the recommendations by the Government Tribunal report on Lara Pearce and Tamba Momo, saying the report lacks evidentiary standards. These are what we'll be discussing in the program today. Well, in our first segment in the program, every year, November 2nd is the International Day to End Impunity for Crimes Against Journalists. The day urged member states to implement definite measures countering the present culture of impunity. The date was chosen in commemoration of the assassination of 2 French journalists in Mali on 2nd November 2013. Ending impunity for crimes against journalists is one of the most important and complex challenges of recent times. With the rise of conflicts and other crises, the 2024 observance seeks to promote a broader discussion on the safety of journalists working in these contexts, including the prevention, protection, and prosecution concerns of journalists affected by such challenges. According to United Nations recent statistics, 153 journalists have been killed in the line of duty in 2022 to 2023. 117 journalists were killed in 2020 to 2021. And in 2021, the percentage of women amongst all journalists killed also doubled, rising to 11% from 6% the previous year. So this morning, to discuss the day and where we are as a nation in protecting journalists, we have Mohamed Kone, who's here to speak from the perspective of a journalist, and Alhaji Manika Kamara, National Secretary General of the Sierra Leone Association of Journalists. He would be speaking for SLAJ. Good morning, gentlemen. Thanks for joining us.
Good morning, Phoebian.
Good morning.
And thanks for having us.
I'll start with Manika, the official, body of journalists, SLAJ. Let's contextualize this situation. How concerning is it in Sierra Leone for journalists? Is it the same fate or is it different? Are we slightly better or worse? What's it like in Sierra Leone?
Thank you very much, Fabian. I would say for now, it's a bit better for us in Sierra Leone when it comes to protection of journalists, because before now, we used to hear about the arrest or detention of journalists on a weekly basis. But since 2022, when SLAJ and the security sector signed the Memorandum of Understanding, to date, we seldom hear about some arrest or detention of journalists, which to us is a plus. Because like I said earlier on, we used to visit the Criminal Investigations Department or the various police stations across the country on a weekly basis to beg for our colleagues or to ask for them to be put on bail for issues or crime that the police perceive to be against members of the public. But since we signed the Memorandum of Understanding, we now understand our various roles as some journalists and the security sector, because particularly whenever we have elections or public functions, that is when we have issues with the police, because for us journalists, we want the news, we want to report about exactly what happened. And the police, their responsibility is to ensure the safety and security of every person present in that particular occasion. So most times, but since we signed the MOU, we now understand ourselves, our various rules. We also have a platform that is being opened by the Media Reform Coordinating Group, MRCG, where in the police, the security sector, the media, civil society, we meet and discuss issues of national importance. So those are some of the things that we've done over the years to ensure that our members are secure and they are protected, despite the fact that we sometimes have cases once in a while, but we have made some progress over the years.
With the progress made, it takes us to impunity. Part of this November 2nd commemoration is also to look at how to bring to book those who have sort of had encounters with journalists in their line of duty. What would you speak to that? Have journalists in the past in Sierra Leone who had their rights violated or assaulted during their line of duty gotten justice?
Yes, I would say some, because there are times when journalists will report some cases of attack or assault or whatever. And then when they report to us as large, the first thing that we inform them to do is to go to the police and make statements, because we don't want to speak in vacuum. We want to speak from an informed point of view. Once you reported the matter to the police station, SLAG will then issue out a statement. Because for us, we only condemn the act and then we follow the actions behind the scene with the journalist. It is you, the journalist, who should officially make a report to the police that you've been assaulted or you've been attacked by a political supporter or any member of the public. If you fail to do that, there is no way SLAG will come in, because we've had instances wherein a particular SLAG member issue out a press release debunking the position of SLAG some years ago. So we don't want to get into those issues again. So that's why whenever a reporter or a journalist reports to us about short cases, we inform them to go to the police and make statements, and then we do follow up. In most cases, they will settle a matter and then they will report to us also that this matter has been settled. I will give you an instance. There was a reporter from Vopad Radio in Waterloo who was assaulted by some military personnel. The matter was brought to the attention of SLAG, and we issue out a press release because we are aware of the fact that the matter has been reported to the police, and then we officially complained to the head of the military. So they investigated the matter and they were able to identify the particular officer who was involved in the act, and they asked him to foot the bill of the journalist and the medical bill, and then they punish him at the end of the day. Also, the officer also replaced the recorder and the camera of the journalist that the journalist reported that they were allegedly stolen during the process. So those are some of the cases that we've done. Also, again, in Kenema recently, there is a journalist again who was assaulted by some police officers again at the police station. We made the reports, we issued out a press release, we engaged the police leadership in Freetown, and the mayor in Kenema also intervened. The matter was resolved, and the police, they took up the matter, they investigated, and then they punished the perpetrator again. So we have cases of journalists who seek justice, and then we are okay with that.
Let's talk about one case that comes to my mind right now. Sometimes it's during elections as well that the tension is high for the major political party. They begin to see the journalists as the enemy, and the supporters see the journalists as the enemy, when the journalists are merely reporting the actions and inactions of their people. So instead of holding the people who take certain actions or do not take certain actions, they take it out on the journalists who merely come to report that. Very recently in this year, we saw a colleague, Amadou Lamganaba, who was under attack on social media. There were threats against him for doing his work as a journalist.
Yes, like you rightly mentioned, Amadou Lamganaba, we have Thomas Dixon and others who are constantly facing threat because of what they are doing. I always reference Amadou Lamganaba as one journalist who have stand out completely. I've known him since 2010, 2011, and he's been consistent in holding government officials to account. This is not the first time Amadou Lamganaba is doing his job. He has been doing it over the years, for over decades. I can recall when the late former Minister of Fisheries, who was also, she was the Minister of Energy, Afsatu Kaba. Yes, when she was held accountable and found guilty by the courts, and then I can't recall. It was during the time of former President Ernest Bai Koroma in 2011, 2012, when they overturned the ruling again. And then Amadou Lamadaba reported that, was it as a result that the president wanted to give another appointment that they overturned the ruling of the High Court? So those are some of the things that Amadou Lamadaba have been doing. And also in 2014, 2015, at the peak of the Ebola, Amadou Lamadaba raised a campaign that former President Nkrumah should not attend the UN General Assembly. Instead, he should then visit the medical team in Kenema, those that are in the forefront fighting the Ebola. By then, the former Minister of Information and Communication, Alhaji Alpha Kanu, was saying that there is no way the president can visit the hotspots, the Ebola hotspot, because it's as if we want to put the president in danger. But being a listening president by then, former President Anis Nkrumah traveled to Kenema using the helicopter. He was in Kenema, and then we saw the actions of the medical worker. That particular visit boosted their morale. We saw exactly what happened after that visit. The fight against Ebola was positive, and we were able to overcome the virus. So these are some of the examples that we want to highlight, that members of the public should not always see journalists as threats. They should see them as people who speak truth to power. We sometimes support the government. For instance, in 2023, when the government was about applying for the non-permanent seats, security permanent seats at the United Nations, we issued out a press release supporting government position. So members of the public bashed us, but we knew what we were doing by then, because it is not about a political party, but the government of Sierra Leone. And at the end of the day, Sierra Leone was awarded the non-permanent seat at the United Nations. That is a plus for us. So we don't always report the negative side. We also report the positive side of things. Also, you said, yes, during elections, most times, not only the security apparatus, but also the political parties, they do see us as enemy, because they don't want us to report exactly what is going on in the various polling stations or some other places. But for us, we did engage our members. We train them regularly how to report. There are some times we encourage them not to take photographs, because once they see you trying to take photographs, they will grab your phones, and then it will be very difficult for you to access it again. You disguise yourself, and then you take your photograph. There is no way we can go without reporting those issues. No way. Even when the 2023 elections, there are so many fake news moving around that there are fake ballot boxes, ballot papers. Journalists were out there reporting, giving out the accurate information. And it cooled down the tension. And at the end of the day, we have a very peaceful elections. Till date, since 2023, till date, we are yet to receive an official complaint from a journalist who was assaulted or arrested during the election process. The only case that we received from a journalist, that was after the election, when the opposition or People Party were holding a press conference, and then the security apparatus attacked the political party headquarters. We contacted the regional head of the operational division department of the police, and he assured us that they will release the journalists unarmed. And then they were all released, except for one of our colleagues who was trying to leave the scene with his vehicle. He alleged that military officers and some police officers attacked his vehicle. And the issue was reported again to the Inspector General of Police. So relatively, we are a bit peaceful in Sierra Leone when it comes to safety and security of journalists. Like you said earlier on, according to the UNESCO, there are about 150 journalists killed between 2022 and 2023. I can say here that it's as a result of the issues in the Middle East, where we have received cases of over 70 journalists being killed in the line of duty. That's why this year, the theme of this year's celebration is the safety of journalists in crisis and emergency. And it will be celebrated on the 6th and the 7th in Ethiopia, which is the headquarters of.
We'll look at those other details, but still on the safety of journalists. During the 2012, or I think it's 2018 elections, we had a colleague, Ibrahim Samura, who suffered serious assault, and he later on died. What became the outcome of that situation? Because the first point of that assault was during elections.
Yes, immediately we received that information.
People were arrested. Much later on, not much has been known to the public of what became of that case. Today, when we talk about Ibrahim Samura, it's of blessed memory.
Yes, like you rightly said, when we heard about that incident in 2018, it was in 2018. Sludge by then issued a press release condemning the acts, and then we encourage our colleague to follow due process in late Ibrahim Samura. And then after some time, there was a press release that was issued by, it's very difficult, but I would say there was a press release issued by Ibrahim Samura again, condemning the act of Sludge, issuing a press release condemning the act and then calling some names that they are responsible. And unfortunately for him, he lost his life 3 months later. And then the government decided to work on the press release of Sludge, and then some tip-offs from the police. Some arrests were made, and the matter was charged to court. Unfortunately, he was dead by then. And then some of us followed the proceedings in court, and some people who were present at the scene gave evidences. And then at the end of the day, the courts found the people who were in court by then not guilty.
So that's another case of impunity. A journalist assaulted while covering elections. He much later on died of those injuries, according to the postmortem. And today, no one is behind bars. So that's a case of impunity right here in Sierra Leone.
I will not say that's a case of impunity.
If it's not, then what is it?
Because those who were alleged to have been involved in the act by then, who were before the court, they were proved to be innocent. But what I would say here is that there are some other people who the court was unable to arrest at the time and tried. So we hope and pray that...
So that means it should not be a closed case. Those people should still be wanted.
We hope and pray once they're in town, the police will arrest them and then continue with the investigation.
But Sludge itself is a body of journalists.
Yes.
These are the men and women of the press. If one of your own could die under such tragic circumstances, and there are people who are wanted, isn't it incumbent on the membership of Sludge periodically to remind the public, bring an update of that case? You read newspapers today, watch television or listen to radio or even check online news. Nobody is reporting follow-up of that situation to say this is what it is, and certain people still remain at large. They are still wanted for further investigation for Ibrahim Samura's death.
Yes, you are right. We are all journalists, like, including your very self. We are all journalists. We should be monitoring those cases.
And I am not an exception, by the way, saying that.
Yes, that's why I say we are all journalists. And I can recall there was a time the daughter of the late man, daughter of the late man launched a foundation in commemoration of our late father's death. And I'm sure that foundation is still up and running. And yes, you are right, Sludge, because the reason why we stay back from that case at some point, it's because of the late man issued a press release when he was alive, condemning the position of Sludge. Because we first issued a press release condemning the act of the alleged political party or supporters who were involved. Our position by then was for the political party in power, for them to condemn the act so that we can have a start. But few weeks after that, the victim issued a press release. He was the one moving media houses to media houses, giving them the press release for them to publish the press release against Sludge. So as at that time, there's nothing much we can do. Because the victim said, no, these are not the people, these are not the perpetrators. So there was nothing Sludge can do at that time. Because if even we force the matter to court, who knows, maybe the person, the victim will have gave evidence against Sludge. Because just the press release, he went against us. It's unfortunate that he's late now, and we appreciate to some extent the efforts of the police and the judiciary, because there are times the case will just be left like that without any justice. But the mere fact that they took up upon themselves to investigate the matter and detain some people for close to a year, Then they said they were innocent. Well and good. We hope and pray that once those who were at large, when the matter was in court, when they are in town, the police will investigate them also, and justice will be served. If they are innocent, fine. If they are guilty, well and good.
Colonel, just like Samura was mentioned, there are other journalists whom the MAGCG has just listed in their recent press release to have been abused, intimidated and harassed in Sierra Leone. People like Ali Bai Kamara of Citizen Radio, Emmanuel Sitholi, Night Watch newspaper, Amadou Lamranaba, former director of the AYV, Patrick Kai of Calabash newspaper, Ali Badara et al. Do you think this sort of reluctance to pursue cases is pursue cases against, cases of intimidation against journalists or harassment against journalists is setting a very bad precedent for the future?
You look at certain situations and you have to say otherwise. For example, Manika was just talking about Samura who died as a result of duty online. At that point in time, even the family of Samura, they are not willing to pursue the case. Because I remember I was in court for 1 or 2 times, and we are calling on people from the part of the family to testify in that case. And most of them, almost all of them, all of the family members, we are not willing. We are not willing to testify in that particular case. And that was the reason why those that were arrested and detained, who were undergoing trial, we are discharged of that case. The other thing I will look at, the names that you've called, these are people that have been attacked, molested, they've been abused online, some physically attacked, and much has not been done. And I would say there are no specific laws that protect journalists in this country. And that I would say the only protection for journalists is the Constitution, which guarantees the right to life. If you go to Chapter 3, fundamental human rights, or any other ordinary Sierra Leonean. But if you say we have specific laws that protect journalists, we do not have those kind of laws. And most times, what happens is only the advocacy from SLAJ that is the protection for journalists. Even if you look at the IMC Act of 2020, there is no specific section of that act that protects journalists. I mean, for example, if somebody in the public is aggrieved and takes the case to IMC, if the journalist is found wanting, that journalist is fined, and the journalist is even asked to do retraction. But if the journalist is exonerated, if journalist in that case, not even a press release will come out from IMC saying that the journalist has won the case. So there are no specific laws that protect journalists in this country. So basically, sometimes it's difficult to go against people that attack journalists, perpetrators, politicians. So it's a difficult situation. So basically, that is why when we are celebrating days of this nature, it's a reminder to government that they need to uphold that aspect of protecting journalists. The reason being, when you infringe on the right of a journalist, you are not only depriving that journalist of information, you're not only depriving that journalist's individual right, you are also depriving the public, the community, the citizen, the country, their access to information. For example, we wake up one morning, there is no AYV, there is no SLBC, there are no media outlet broadcasting. You know what will happen? Chaos. It will be chaotic. And so that's the more reason why we need to protect journalists. Because if we do not protect them, your right to access information, will be violated. So basically, these days is for us to remind our leaders, to remind duty bearers of their responsibility in protecting journalists. I think it is time that we start thinking about regulations, rules that protect journalists. I remember in the last constitutional review of Justice Kawan, we presented a paper, presented a position paper to the review committee, and that paper was ignored. But since the review is still ongoing, we are on the verge also again, and we are putting our document together. The same position, we are just beefing it up to present it again to the review committee so that it could be included in the constitution. So that's the position of us currently. But I will tell you, we do not have specific laws that protect journalists when it comes to attack on journalists, when it comes to their violation, when their rights are violated.
A lot of people have also argued that the Cybersecurity and Crimes Act is also being used to intimidate a lot of journalists, and it's a very harsh law.
Especially when you come to Section 4.
Do you share similar sentiments?
Yes, especially when you come to in the Act. And for example, Section 44 of the Act. For example, not every police officer has the right to hold my phone. And when it comes to cybercrime, there's no any police officer can confiscate your phone, and that's if in other jurisdictions it's not correct, because your phone or your laptop is where you have sensitive materials. So not anybody could just lay hands on those property. So that is not it's not in the cybercrime, and they have been using the Cybercrime Act to intimidate journalists. I know of journalists that have been arrested because they post something online. And again, you have people that are using the online platform to abuse, to intimidate, to molest journalists. And it's something that we're still grappling with. And as a state, as a country, we've not been able to deal with that. Because anybody can abuse you and online, and that person goes scot-free. As long as you're a journalist, somebody abuses you online, that person goes scot-free. But as a journalist, if you abuse anybody, especially politician, if you abuse a politician online, the next day you'll be at the CID answering to questions. So basically, the cybercrime law is not a bad law. It's not a bad law, but there are sections. There are sections in that law that is not that we still think that it's not good for us as a country.
Kana, do you see the need for media literacy? I ask this because sometimes when some of our colleagues are under attack, the comments you read about what they do, people are angry that a journalist would report corruption case of one politician. Do you see media literacy as part of the problem, that people do not understand the role of the media and its functions in society?
What I would say, I mean, educating the public is something that we need to continue. And the people need to understand our role, because when you do not understand the role of a particular sector, then you misunderstand everything they do. And if I report anything about corruption, about a particular political party or a particular politician, as long as you have people sitting somewhere who will not agree with you, whether you are reporting the correct thing or not, will not agree with you, because they are supporting that political party. Misunderstanding that that's the role of journalists, to hold public officials to account. And if we do not hold public officials to account, for example, look at the intermittent light electricity that we are having of late. I mean, if you do not have a journalist to talk on those aspects, look at in certain communities, you go to certain communities, there are no water in certain communities. And it is the journalists that brings those things to the forefront. And so if we as journalists are bringing all of those things to the light, then the public need to appreciate the work that we are doing. They should not misunderstand what we are doing. Because the number of odds that is happening in society, it's only the journalists that will bring it out. I mean, there are things that maybe the politician not even understand what is happening within that sector. But when the journalists write about it, when the journalists broadcast about it, then the politician will now take it. I mean, I remember I reported a story on the Bo prisons at some point in time. The Bo prison, there were no beddings. Insects have infested the prison at that time, and there was so much scabies within. When I reported that story, in less than 24 hours, the government had gone there to clean the cells. They took beddings. So if there was nothing of such a report, that situation would have will have compounded, and there will have been continuous problem in that prisons. So we also need to bring all of those to the forefront. That is why media literacy, as we talk about media literacy, is very, very important. The public needs to understand our role. The public needs to understand that we are not just, journalists are not just there to sing public officials, to sing politicians. We are there to bring out the odds, because if we do not hold our public officials to account, for example, you'll be in your house for a week without even electricity, and you have nobody to hold. You'll be in your community without no water, and your roads will be damaged, and there will be nobody to repair them. And that is why the public need to understand our role, that these are the things that are the forefront, so that duty bearers take upon themselves, duty bearers respond to them in a positive manner.
Then, Manika, what then can SLAJ and journalists do, still towing this line, to get the public updated, informed on what the roles and responsibilities of a journalist are?
Yeah, we always engage our members, because what we have experienced over the years is the fact that members of the public only become interested in political issues. Whenever there are political issues, they are very much interested.
But only something that is good for the political parties they support and belong to.
Yes.
Once it's on the flip side, if you report for the SLPP people, if you report something that makes APC look bad and they look good, they're celebrating. It's the same for the APC. But once you report something that puts their party under the telescope, you're in trouble.
And then it is the political party supporters that will go after the journalist again. That is why I'm coming. That's why I said whenever we reported anything relating to political issues, like you said, if they are against their opponents, they are okay. If they are in their favor, they are fine. But if it goes against their interests, they will come after the journalists. But whenever we reported issues of development or any other thing, they will accuse us of being in support of the government.
You're pro-government.
Yes. So that is it. So what we are doing now is to see how best we can engage our media colleagues to be coming up with information, with educational programs in their radio stations, newspaper, television, so that members of the public will know exactly the roles and responsibility of a journalist. We are all citizens, we are all Sierra Leoneans. We have the rights to free speech, we have the rights to whatever things they are enjoying as a citizen. So, but we took upon ourselves to represent those who are the voiceless in society, to speak for them, to write on their behalf on issues of development, issues that are against, issues that where the government failed to do, issues that are against the wishes of the people, the human rights abuses. It is our responsibility to bring them up so that governments will see the need to take actions. For example, what Colonel just highlighted, this morning on my way coming here, I was late because there is a traffic at Ferry Junction. It is not deliberate. It is as a result of development, a recent development, the traffic lights. But people are complaining because they are not used to it over the years. They say, no, we don't need this thing again. Let's continue to use the police officer. But some of us that are development-oriented, we know this is a development. It's a gradual process. So these are some of the things. Assuming now a journalist is reporting on the traffic aspect of the street light, people will start getting at him, bashing at him, saying that you are against development. But that's another area of the news. You look at the news from different angles. I would choose to report the news from the negative aspect, the traffic aspect, the way people are suffering, whilst others will choose to report on the development aspect. There's the introduction of this traffic light at Ferry Junction, Congo Cross, Abadeo Junction, Lumley. So you see, it's diverse, the news reporting is diverse. So members of the public should learn to understand our roles and responsibility. So I'm calling on our colleagues to continue with the education program so that members of the public will know exactly what we are doing. We are not supporting any political parties. It is my right as a Sierra Leonean to belong to any political party. Nothing wrong with that. For as long as I make it clear to members of the public that Alhaji Manika Kama is supporting UPP, is supporting this other party, it's my right as a Sierra Leonean. Nothing wrong about it. But when it comes to my journalistic work, I have to put the country first as a journalist.
From a critical perspective, the analogy would be that it was a deliberate attempt to repeal the Part 5 of the 1965 Public Order Act so that journalists could be suffocated with the Cybercrimes Act. Do you share a similar view?
I don't share that because when the bill was going on, the issue of this cybercrime was not that too popular. And one thing that the government assured SLAG was that they will not bring anything that will impede on the freedom of a journalist. That's why when Parliament enacted the cybercrime, and we looked at it and we realized that Section 44 is against the wish of what was done in 2021, we started the campaign against it again. We call on the then Minister of Information, Mohamed Rahman Sewari, and we also call on the current Minister of Information again, Chairman Siba. We explained to them our position that this law is contrary to the repeal. This is a repeal in disguise. And we will continue to advocate for that law to be repealed again, because it should not be thing that it's only at the discretion of the judge or the police. Let them explain exactly how it ought to be.
Okay, let me hear from Connie. What are your views around this? Do you think it was deliberate?
No. As I said earlier on, the cybercrime law is not a bad law entirely. You have very good sections in that law. But when it comes to protection of your data, I mean, there are sections that protect even your privacy as an individual.
That's beautiful. Yeah.
I mean, there are very good sections in that law. But when it comes to Section 44, this is where we have with the law, and we think not like entirely replacing the Part 5 of the Public Order Act that was repealed. There are certain provisions, especially in that section, that impede on the right of journalists. And just talking about who should touch your phone, who should touch your computer, who should arrest you, should in case you come in contact with that law. So basically, that is why the advocacy still continues from the part of SLAG, and that section needs to be looked into once again. And it's something that the last time we are supported by IFJ, the International Federation of Journalists, to look at that particular section. And we've made a recommendation sent to them. That recommendation has been forwarded to government, and I'm sure government is looking at it. And we are still continuing with the advocacy to government, engaging government on that part, so that because we do not want journalists to do their work with fear, with trembling. We do not want that kind of, because when a journalist is afraid to do his or her work, then there's a problem. Because if, as I was saying just now, if the journalist wake up in the morning and is afraid to even report on the intermittent blackout, or there is no water within communities, there are bad roads everywhere, and the journalist is afraid of reporting on those aspects, then it becomes a problem. Or a politician is doing something that is not correct, there's aspect of corruption somewhere, and that journalist is afraid to report on that corruption, then it's a challenge that we are all having as a country. Then our country will not move forward. So basically, that section in the cybercrime law is something that we are still concerned about, and we think that the review process, as we have promised, when it is being reviewed, that section will be looked at. A number of us, when our law was laid in Parliament, nobody thought about that particular section unless until it's passed, and we now started looking at the legal aspect of that law. And when they started using it, then we realized that this section of this law is not good for us. And that's the more reason why we staged that campaign, and the campaign is still ongoing, so that that section will be looked at and reviewed in a proper manner. As I said, not any kind of police officer should hold or look at your phone or your computer, or even enter your office when it comes to aspect of privacy.
I just picked a very interesting question on our Facebook page by Usman Prince Sulaiman Kavun. He's asking, he says, I think it's time for you guys to draft up an e-bill that can take to Parliament for the protection of journalists. So earlier on, you were saying that journalists are not protected in Sierra Leone. So this stems from that. He's suggesting that it's time to take a bill to Parliament that specifically looks at the protection of journalists. What are your thoughts in this, Manika?
Yeah, already, if you can recall when we launched the SLAG manifesto, the media manifesto in 2023, because the reason behind that manifesto is that we are going to national elections, the various political parties will then capture maybe a paragraph or two in their various manifestos that this is what we'll do for the media when we get to power. So for us, we believe that that is not enough for us. They are not doing us favor. The political parties are not doing the media favor. So that is why we decided to develop the media manifesto in 2023. And in that media manifesto, we have various thematic areas, including the protection and safety of journalists. So now that this person have suggested that we develop a bill, yes, we have the media reform coordinating group that is monitoring most of the attack and cases against journalists, both in the courts and outside the courts. So we are working with them closely to see how best we can develop something we can present to the government. Mind you, also there is also the media, the national media policy that we've just completed the validation with the various stakeholders, including the Ministry of Information and Civic Education. Very soon we'll finalize that policy that contains so many things, including the safety and protection of journalists. Once that policy goes into cabinet and they endorse it, I'm sure it contains so many protection of journalists. So I will encourage members of the public to wait for the outcome of that particular, and then they will see exactly the things that are there relating to the protection of journalists.
And in line with that, we also have our position that was presented to the Constitutional Review of Justice Kawan. And that same position is still there. And what we are now doing is to beef it up because there are emerging issues. We know that several emerging issues are now coming up. And so that position paper will also be presented to the current Constitutional Review ongoing, because there's currently a review ongoing, and we want to present that again to the review committee, so that we want that position to be part of the Constitution. Because once that is part of the Constitution, then we now know that there are protection for journalists in the country. So basically, these are all the issues that we are working on.
Yes,
and in our MENA, there are 8 thematic areas. Those 8 thematic areas, they are safety and security of journalists, which is one key pillar in that media manifesto, and that is something that is already with government. It's also the media development that we are also working on, which if that comes into fruition, it will help so much again, because it will help journalists to do their work without fear or favor. So basically, there are a lot of developmental aspects that we are working on. We only hope and pray that the government will take them in good faith and try to do the needful.
Yes, I mean, added to what Connie have just said, we are calling on the government to see how best they can incorporate the proposed Section 12, which has to do with the media, because that was presented again to the Justice Kawan Commission for us to have a proposed Section 12, which specifically speaks to the media. And we are also developing that again to see how best we can present it again to the Attorney General and the committee that is ongoing now, to see how best they can look at it and then incorporate it into the Constitution. Like Connor said, that will give us the required protection that we are seeking as a media practitioner, because there is no way we can continue to operate in fear, because we also have our families to protect. Once we are out there saying things, writing things, our families are back home calling us. Therefore, take time, we know say this country is not safe. So we are very much aware about that. We are very much aware about the safety of our colleagues out there who are also risking their life, just to make sure that things goes the right way.
Right. Laji Manika Kamar, National General, the Sierra Leone Association of Journalists, and Mohamed Kone, an esteemed journalist working for Star Media.
Yeah.
Media One Center.
Yeah, I'm still
Media One Center. Thank you very much indeed, gentlemen, for coming. Impunity against journalists is something that is quite rife, and I believe with a concerted effort, some of these impunities might quell down soon. One just needs to be robust these days.
Yes, exactly. Because we are also working with our international partners, particularly the IFJ. They are always concerned whenever there is an attack on a journalist or there is an issue against the journalist at the criminal investigation department. They will get to SLAG to get an additional information on those issues. And we always keep them abreast of the information because they are also out there representing press freedom. They are our international partners. We also keep the Ministry of Information and Civic Education updated on issues of such nature because we can't do it alone. We also have our local partners. We have the MRCG, we have the IRN, all those media institutions. We are working as a team to see how best we can all those challenges against media.
Thank you very much, gentlemen, for joining the conversation this morning. Separately, which uniform are you wearing this morning, Victor?
This is, by far perhaps one of the most reputable and most successful, academic institutions in this country. This is the esteemed, when you talk about the creme de la cremes, you would not speak about, academic
Victor,
institutions and say, no. Well, this is a West African Methodist college at school. Oh yeah, I just want you to know.
Not someone I produce for this uncle. Right, I told you earlier that today and tomorrow, AYV staff are coming to work in their school uniforms. Rep your school. Today, Monday, is the primary schools.
What school uniform?
And Tuesday is secondary school. Connor is asking me. I said earlier, I attended 2 preschools, and some schools don't do uniforms, it's clothes, so I don't have a uniform to wear. Tiny Tots doesn't do uniforms, and the other one I attended, Foya David, we were wearing clothes to school. I think others, I have some educational institutions I blacklist on my CV. Now, tomorrow, I'm coming in my secondary school uniform for sure. It's all ready, and I'm excited. Why do you want to break the ice?
Wait for tomorrow.
Right, so.
Attends un peu, s'il vous plaît.
Okay, so.
Wait tomorrow, you'll get to see me in my school uniform.
Okay.
I wish we could show you right now what it's looking like. Even in the studio, our crew, it's so beautiful in their primary school uniforms. But you'll get to see the pictures online, obviously, because we're going to have a devotion. Hold on, you'll get to see many things on it. But we're going on a quick break before we come back to the next and final segment of the program. We would be talking to the Budget Advocacy Network, BAN. They're calling on Parliament to reject the tribunal report on the former Auditor General and her deputy. That conversation is coming up immediately after this break. Please stay with us.
Rokel SIM Copper Plus is an electronic mobile banking application which connects customers to their respective bank accounts through their mobile phones. With Rokel SIM Copper, you can do cash withdrawal, cash deposit, pay for goods, balance inquiry, transfer from RC bank account to another bank account, utility bills payment, buy airtime for GSM phone, request foreign exchange transactions. It is an application that can be used at any time and anywhere within the confines of Sierra Leone, thereby creating 24 hours access to your account. Rokel Commercial Bank, the bank of choice.
Are you ready to put your singing abilities to the test? Can you sing word for word your favorite song lyrics? Can you really prove that you sabi the lyrics? Well, let's find out.
Man, they go die there, I open man.
You too can join the fun and stand a chance to win a suitable cash prize on this wonderful show, You Sabi the Lyrics. As the team will be in different parts in Freetown to test your lip-syncing skills. And once you can prove that you could sing a particular song lyrics perfectly, you will definitely, surely, and happily win a prize on the spot. This show will be on AYV DSTV channel 399 very soon. Get ready, get set to be entertained with your host, the Ginger Queen Nella.
What's up, beautiful viewers? Welcome to AYV Sabi the Lyrics with me, Emanuela.
It's definitely going to be lit on AYV Sabi the Lyrics.
Don't go where transfer charges chop off a chunk of what you're sending. With no sonko, you can send money for free with AfriMoney any day, anytime, no matter the amount. Dial *161 *1# now to send money for free with no charges. AfriMoney, no sonko.
Feels good to see your face again. It's been a very crazy day. The joyous feeling in the air when rain falls on a sunny day. Happy, yeah. Let the stars, let the roll.
Enjoy life's little pleasures with Maltina. Maltina, share happiness.
Around Gorgi also. Una.
Right, welcome back. You're still tuned to the Africa Young Voices, and you're watching Wake Up Sierra Leone. My name is Victor Jones. Do not forget to continue to drop your comments on our Facebook page or questions to AYV News, and we shall ensure indeed to read them before the program ends this morning. Now, in our final segment this morning, the Budget Advocacy Network BAN and partners in their analysis of the Tribunal's report investigating suspended Auditor General Lara Pearce and former Deputy Auditor General Tamba Momo has revealed significant procedural and evidentiary concerns, sparking calls for greater transparency and adherence to due process in Sierra Leone's public institutions. Now, the report, which recommended the removal of both officials, is now under thorough scrutiny for its handling of legal standards and potential biases. Now, the analysis recommended that Parliament defer debate on the Tribunal's recommendations until a comprehensive annex of evidence is produced. So this morning, to discuss the issue and more, we have been joined by Abubakar Kamara, who is National Coordinator, BAN. Good morning. And Imran Silar from the Strategic Comms Unit, MYC. Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning. Thank you for the opportunity.
Good morning, Ravi, and good morning, Sierra Leoneans.
It's a pleasure having you.
Thank you.
Now, I've read from the intro, but could you please take us through, indeed, the nitty-gritties of the arguments that BAN is putting forward?
In the first place, it's not just BAN, it's a coalition of 6 organizations that involve the Citizen Barrier, the Eminent Women of Peace, ILRAJ, 50/50 / and then BAN. So
you are representing this consortium?
Yes, so okay. For this purpose here, I'm not just representing BAN, I'm representing these 6 institutions, credible institutions.
Okay. So what are the nitty-gritties of the argument?
Firstly, since the suspension of the Auditor General, we condemn the act. that it is a bad precedent for this country, especially in the area of audit accountability. We saw what happened transpire. The process was flawed. There are missteps in the process of the suspension of the Auditor General. We saw where the rule of law and the rule of natural justice is not prevailing. I can give you an example for that. Lara Pearce filed a case at the Supreme Court, questioning the constitutionality of the tribunal formed, questioning the qualification of the members. That case was not enlisted to any panelists until after the tribunal report had been completed. So the case was only enlisted in July this year, and up to now, no hearing. So that tells you that, just to give an example of how the principle of natural justice was really, and the rule of law was not prevailing in the process. So now coming into the tribunal reports itself, we took our time to look at word by word, letter by letter, all of the things in the report. And of course, we have our legal people in the consortium. We have the accountant professionals in the consortium. So we'll look at the report in details. And then backed by witness, because we witness all of the sessions in the tribunal, is for this very reason, because we want to ensure that, the report will reflect exactly what transpired in the tribunal. So backed by what we witness in the tribunal. And then again, we also look at the legal standards. Audit profession is just like a lawyer or law. They have legal standards to follow. So look at all of the legal standards. We look at the Constitution, we look at the Audit Service Act. It's based on that we arrive at our report, the 8-page report, which I have here. Firstly, we find out that the tribunal rely more on state witness and hearsay without referring to any legal standards or law when arriving at their conclusion. I will give an example of this. One of the main things in this whole tribunal is the aspect of third-party confirmation. And this is in the case of receipts. Mind you, the audit that was done for the Office of the President is compliance audit. It's not financial audit. For financial audit, they will ask the client to send a letter, and that is mainly to confirm bank balances. That's when they will ask and say, okay, I want to get a bank statement from a bank. Can you please authorize that? That's for financial audit. And even the audit standard is not mandatory, but it's acceptable. So that is okay. But the audit that was done for Office of the President is compliance audit. And for compliance audit, it has its own standards for every issue. And in the case of documents, the standard is clear that in the course of auditing, if you are presented a document that has some feature that make it to have doubt on the issues, the auditor can do two things. Number one, hire the expert of law audit. Number two, contact the third party directly. That's what the standard says. So again, coming back to my point that I said, the conclusion, most of them rely on state witness, and here, of course, the implication of a state witness when the case is between the state and another individual. We saw where the tribunal concluded that the process of contacting a hotel to verify the receipt without their consent constitutes breach of misconduct. It's a misconduct issue. And they just rely on state witness on that. They did not point out no legal standard, even though in the hearings where we attend, we saw those that wrote the standards, the Exercise Development Initiative. Just like in football, FIFA wrote all the rules of the game. In audit, it's Exercise that wrote all the rules of the game. Exercise testified, the director of Exercise ID testified in the tribunal that they did the right thing by contacting third party. By the way, if they contact also the president before verifying the receipt, it will have defeated the purpose of confirming the receipt. And we saw the African aspect, the Exercise, confirmed. In the hearing, we saw ICASL confirmed that indeed they follow the right standard. It's not just confirming, they cite the section and the standard that gave audit service the rights, the mandate to contact third party without the consent of office of the president. But we saw the tribunal just took what the state witness said and arrive at a conclusion without referring to any legal document, any standards. And mind you, for audit, it is the audit standards. Without referring to audit standards that they can use to arrive at their conclusion. So that's one aspect of the report which we find very much problematic. We also saw instances wherein, again, the same PRC, they just rely on hearsay without any document, and the tribunal report arrive at a conclusion. I'll give you an example. Say, for example, the issue of conflict of interest with Sata Mamomo and Lara Pearce. And the first case, in the case of Lara Pearce, in the written submission to the Auditor General, they responded on the issue of conflict of interest. But the tribunal now is the place wherein all of them will come with their evidence and discuss the issues. For Lara Pearce, that issue was never brought up at the tribunal. No evidence was brought up against him to testify at the tribunal. How does the tribunal arrive at a conclusion on that particular issue? In the case of Tamamo, the issue was brought up, and the witness gave his testimony, whatever. And when he was cross-examined, Tamamo was right at the court. He cannot identify Tamamo. And we saw the tribunal relying on that person with statements to arrive at a conclusion that Tamamo really committed conflict of interest. We are in the very tribunal, when he was cross-examined, he cannot identify the person he's cross-examining against.
When you said he could
besides that, he does not came up with no documents, no video, no audio to really show that this is what indeed Tamamo did.
Just to clarify,
conclude that it, yes, please.
When you said he could not identify, was the witness asked to identify Tamamo?
Yes. When cross-examined by Tamamo lawyer, were there. You know, one of the reasons why...
And the person couldn't?
The person couldn't identify Tamamo in the hearings. This is one of the reasons why we took our time to attend all of the hearings. We sent representatives in all of the hearings. Because we want... It's as if we knew that at the end of the day, we are going to have some partial Auditor General report. So that's again another critical issues, and which they put doubt on how does the tribunal arrive at short conclusion. The person with the witness against, unable to identify him, then the tribunal concludes, say, indeed, this is what happened, without no documents, no written, no audio. So that places some doubt on the credibility of the conclusion on that particular issues. We also saw the issues around the auditing of the Transform Freetown project, where the allegation was they stopped an audit of the Transform Freetown project. Again, let me say this. Every year, audit service is auditing Freetown City Council in their normal auditing. The allegation was that they stopped Transform Freetown project. You know, in auditing and accounting, they always follows their laws, their standards, their regulations. It's clear that if the money does not go to that particular institution, and the Transform Freetown project was supported by DFID, now FCDO, all of the resources goes to INGOs. They are the one that directly implemented all of the activities. No resources go to Freetown City Councils. And in the hearing, the testimony is just hearsay. There are no, again, no written, no audio, no video that shows that indeed they denied the halt and audit of Transform Freetown project. It was none of those documents were brought up in the tribunal. All the tribunal relied on was just state witness, and then the tribunal used that to arrive at a conclusion without referring to any standards or law. And in the public sector finance and accounting standards, it's clear when the money does not go to a particular institution. There's a limited role the institution can play. And the role they can only play is in the audits, they will just put an annex in terms for the goods and services they receive. So they will just put the receipt. But Freetown City Council do not do the procurement process, they didn't purchase anything, and the money doesn't go to their accounts. So there is no way the audit service will be able to audit them. And again, the tribunal just rely on the state's witness. and there is no written evidence, no audio, no video that clearly shows that they halt that particular audit. We also saw the issues around the rule of law and the principle of natural justice. And like I mentioned earlier, the aspect of the case with Lara filed at the Supreme Court, up till now, that matter has not yet been heard. In fact, the matter was not enlisted for hearing until after 2 years, 6 months. And mind you, we should have some respect for the highest court of our land. I mean, the Supreme Court is the highest court of our land. If a matter is filed at the Supreme Court, and that matter has to do directly the constitutionality of the very tribunal itself and the qualification of the members present, it will have been befitting for the tribunal to wait and let the Supreme Court really take a position on that particular one. Now, the matter has not been enlisted, has not been heard. Now, should in case the matter is actually heard and they find out that the tribunal was not constitutionally formed, the members were not qualified. So it means the whole tribunal report will just go in vain, which also means that the people's resources will have been wasted because government spend resources on this tribunal to pay the panelists and all of these things, on a lot of these things. So there are missteps even in the process of even suspending the Auditor General. And like I mentioned earlier, I mean, it's clear in terms of what does the process say when you want to suspend someone like the Auditor General. The Constitution is clear. It has to go through process. There has to be.
And what's that process? There
has to be, first of all, an investigation initiated where Lara will be involved, everything. And it's after that investigation, the Judicial and Legal Education Commission will now recommend to His Excellency President for suspension.
But how would you be in office when you're being investigated? Does that not give you perhaps undue advantage?
No, these are
or influence.
These are different things. The process is clear in the Constitution on how to remove a Supreme Court judge and how to remove the Auditor General. Mind you, the process of removing the Auditor General is the same way to remove the and firstly, there should have the Judicial and Legal Commission should have received a complaint. They will have firstly they should conduct an preliminary investigation, talk to Lara and all of the party. It is after that investigation they should now recommend for His Excellency the President to suspend. But what happened? They suspend and they go back. In fact, that's one of the reasons why Bashta Michael resigned, because he rejected that process. We saw when they were other institutions like Carl, they also condemned that they didn't follow the right process. These are some of the mistakes. And again, another one around the principle of natural justice. They were suspended for professional misconduct in November. The details of that professional misconduct was not given to them until almost after 6 to 7 months, which is very much unfair. If you are suspending me, let me know why I'm being suspended for. But never until after 6 months, then they were told the details of what they are suspended. So that also befits the principle of natural justice and the rule of law.
All right, Abubakar, let's hear from the government representative. Fingers are pointing at the government that this has become a politically motivated investigation and outcome as opposed to that of accountability. From the 6 organizations he mentioned, we also saw the release last week, I think it was on Friday, by the accountants, the professionals themselves, saying after their own investigation process as accountants, a professional body, they found out that both Lara Telopias and Tamba Momo were not guilty of any professional misconduct. So how did the government arrive at this seat now?
Well, thank you again. I've just listened to my friend about the position they hold, not only his institution that he represents, but several others, and also you just mentioned the accounting body and their position that they have expressed. Let me say that we're first of all living in a democracy, yeah, and so I think some of the conversations we're getting on this particular subject depicts what a democracy should be like. There's going to be various views around the table. People should have that that entitlement to come up with their position and be able to express it freely like he's doing now. And therefore, I think we look forward to more of those issues being raised as how they see it and feel necessary to raise those issues. But this is about the Constitution of the Republic of Sierra Leone. In his closing argument, he's referencing some portions of the Constitution without necessarily being exact, right? So I just want to be exact. There are other areas I'm not going to get into, because if I attempt to get into them like he's raised those issues up, it means we'll be litigating the whole matter at AYV, and I don't think that's the essence of what my presence here is going to be for. On the issue of the law, the provision is Section 137, Act number 6 of the 1991 Constitution, subsections 1 to 7. And it's a threshold that we have for judges, right? Entrenched in the Constitution of the Republic of Sierra Leone. It says that if you want to remove a judge, and obviously the Auditor General is regarded, right, in that same sort of bracket, right, as to how to remove, right, an Auditor General. So there has to be a panel. And it says for either two reasons, either for infirmity of body or mind in Section 137, subsection 4, or B, for stated misconduct. Now, stated misconduct, B, part of Section 137, subsection 4, is broad. It could mean many things. And therefore, that is why, if you now go on to subsection 5 of Section 137, it says a panel of 3 has to be put together. That panel now has the responsibility to investigate what that stated misconduct is by law. And once investigations are ongoing, contrary to what he's trying to suggest, that individual has to be suspended, right, whilst those investigations are ongoing. It now further says that at the end of the investigation, a report has to be put together. I remember, I think I was invited on this very platform, as in other platforms as well, when the report was out. And the accusation then was, oh, well, why President not pull an ado? Why did not just pull the report Nado? Why did it have to go to His Excellency the President? Because that's the provision under Section 137. I think it's subsection 6, if I'm not mistaken. It says a report should be presented to His Excellency the President. At that point in time, the Deputy Minister of Justice, Alpha Sise, was on record in saying that that report would be made public at some point. But the provision in the Constitution was for that report to be presented to His Excellency the President, which was done. His Excellency the President had to go through the report. At the end, those recommendations contained in the report, one of which says that both the Deputy Auditor General and the Auditor General should be removed from office. What happens? It is contained in subsection 7 of the same Section 137. Yeah? It has nothing to do with the executive arm of government, nothing to do with His Excellency the President, nothing to do with government.
Imran, it's not my pleasure to interrupt you. I'm so sorry. You've taken us to the end point. Let's start from the beginning.
I have started.
He spoke about, first of all, their suspension even before the tribunal. You have taken us to the tribunal's report now being presented to the president. Let's take it from the beginning. How come they were suspended even before setting up the tribunal? And the procedure of the tribunal's report, he said that those who set the standards for accountancy globally, they had a representative to testify that they followed professional standards of accountancy. Yet it was not factored into the report. They took state witnesses and hearsay to arrive at a verdict. Please speak to those.
So I have touched on a number of the issues you've raised, but I'll go over them again, right? For the public to probably be able to understand it better. Section 137 again, subsections 1 to 7 lays out the procedure. Yeah, it is contained in the Constitution of the Republic of Sierra Leone, Act number 6 of 1991, and it says thus: subsection 4 talks about if, under which conditions, right, the Auditor General or somebody of that status of a judge can be removed from office. It says either unable to perform their functions or due to infirmity of body or mind, A, B, for stated misconduct. Stated misconduct now triggers its own process under subsection 137. It says for stated misconduct, there has to be a panel. Was a panel put together of 3? Absolutely, yes. Was suspension, were both those individuals suspended whilst those investigations were ongoing? Yes. Now we can have a conversation as to when did this investigation really start, right? And that is what brings into question why were they suspended before the panel or suspended
before the tribunal?
The tribunal. I mean, before the panel was put together, or why were they not suspended after the panel was put together? Right? We can have that conversation, but central to that conversation has to be, when did that investigation start?
When was it?
It must have started definitely because
you say must have. Are you not
so
sure?
Here's the point I'm making. For a panel to be put together, there must have been some preliminary investigation.
Your choices of words.
No.
It doesn't bring certainty. You said must or may.
I am absolutely certain that for a panel to be put together, for there to be stated misconduct, for that panel to now have the opportunity to investigate what that stated misconduct is, as provided for, I think in section 137, subsection 5, there must have been some preliminary investigation. It is based on that, you now trigger a process. So there are preliminary investigations. And for those preliminary investigations to happen, those suspensions should have taken place by then. The panel now has the liberty and the latitude as provided for under subsection 5 of section 137 to now look into those fine details, and that was what we saw unfolding. Those hearings were made public, those sittings were public, there was nothing that was done in secrecy. People had the opportunity to attend, it was covered by all the major news networks in this country, and so on and so forth. Ultimately, they now have the responsibility as provided for under section 137 to now produce a report. I think it's subsection 6. Producing a report, it clearly states that report should be presented to His Excellency the President and nobody else. Clearly spelled out in the law. Present a report to His Excellency the President. His Excellency the President was presented a report. He eventually made the report public, and
still, before getting to the report, getting to President, he also spoke about Lara and Tamba being investigated, but only getting official information of what they're being investigated for 6 months after the investigation process was already in play.
Now you can.
So how can you be investigated, but you're not officially informed of what you're being investigated for, to also put you in a position to put together your evidence for your defense?
So here's the point. If a suspension has taken place and a panel has been put together, now I did not play any part in the work of the panel and what the tribunal had to do and the sequence they had to follow. I'm going strictly by what is provided for under section 137, subsections 1 to 7. And we can go through it word for word. It is quite clear. It needs no interpretation. You do not even need to have a legal mind to be able to understand various subsections under section 137. So my point is, was she afforded an opportunity, right, to defend herself, both her and the deputy, in those proceedings as they unfolded? Absolutely. Were those proceedings made public? Yes. Now,
Imran, you're asking yourself the wrong questions. Please go with the questions that we are asking. Sorry, you're dealing with the burden of communication.
No, I'm not dealing with any. It's not a burden for me.
You just said you were not part of those proceedings, but as the comms person, you the burden of coming to explain, provide the answers to the questions, even though you were not part of the process.
It's about.
So the question still remains what I asked you earlier. How come they were being investigated, but only got the official information of what they were investigated for 6 months into the investigation, as Abubakar just said it?
I don't want you can ask the question again, and I'm sure we can meander around the issue that you're trying to raise. I want to stick to what the constitutional provisions are.
Unfortunately for you, Imran, we ask the questions, you provide the answers. So we cannot let you ask yourself the questions and provide the answers you choose to provide.
So I have a responsibility to provide answers.
And we have the responsibility to ask the questions, not allow you ask yourself the questions.
I appreciate you keep coming back. And I also would like you to appreciate the fact that I think I should be able to express myself. I mean, as much as you keep coming back. So here's the point for me. Right, the provisions are quite clear under section 137, subsections 1 to 7. I think we need to be able to have a look at what the subsections say, right, to be able to understand and appreciate what unfolded over time. Were those again, I'm coming back to the point.
So did that section say that they should not be informed of the official investigation until 6 months into the investigation?
It quite clearly states, that a tribunal has to be set up. It quite clearly states that those individuals, should be suspended. It quite clearly states that a report has to be provided, right? And it also says that that report should be provided to His Excellency the President. And ultimately, I'm sure that the essence of probably some of the conversations we're having this morning is about checks and balances. Yeah, where do they come in under Section 137, subsections 1 to 7? Is there enough checks, right, in the process whilst it is unfolding? And absolutely, at every given point, it has been taken away from the executive arm of government to the tribunal. When the tribunal produces a report, it says, okay, it recommends, amongst many things, that the Auditor General should be removed from office, that the deputies should be removed from office. It doesn't come back to the executive arm of government. What it states is quite clear. It now goes to Parliament. Parliament becomes the final arbiter, and not by a simple majority. If you read subsection 7, under section 137, it says 2/3 majority, quite clearly, 2/3 majority. And that 2/3 majority ensures it becomes a bipartisan approach. Now, in all of the issues being raised by my brother from BAN and the institutions that he represents here this morning, I'm sure they should begin now to interface and engage with parliamentarians. Produce your reports to them, engage them, to be able to lobby and let them understand what your positions are, because ultimately it goes back to them. It is now, firmly in their domain to be able to come to those decisions by a 2/3 majority. That is for the Auditor General. For the deputy, it quite clearly states that it is the board of the Audit Service Commission that has the responsibility to follow through on the recommendations for the Deputy Auditor General, and therefore that will be done by the board. But for the Auditor General, it goes to Parliament by a 2/3 majority. Now, we can have a conversation as much as we want to, and I probably would not feel inclined to be part of those conversations in terms of what did the accounting body say, what did this body say, and all of the rest of it. Because
unfortunately for you, since your salary comes from taxpayers' money, you would unfortunately have to put up with answering those questions.
No, I am not. And here's my point. Simply because that has already been litigated before a competent jurisdiction. It is not my responsibility to sit here at AYV and begin to litigate every single one of those issues. Your responsibility now is to make sure you come up with your own conclusions contained in your own report and present it to Parliament. You now have a responsibility to canvass Parliament. I cannot sit here and begin to say, oh, well, what one of the judges said should have been this. This is how it should have been. That would be litigation.
But how do you defend that? How do you defend that? How do you defend that, Imran, saying this, shifting yourself away from the conversation now, when the genesis started from the investigations into the office of the president, which now, especially how things are panning out, is leaving your government with the blame to say this has all been a political witch hunt simply because her investigation now went into the office of the president.
So I'm just coming from Morning Coffee SLBC, and I had the same question about witch hunt, right? And this is where I feel slightly bemused, right, and amazed that somehow people might seem to have the view or characterize what happened as witch hunt. Because, if you have any inkling or idea about the provisions under Section 137, that will surely not be your conclusion, and that will surely not be your assertion. Let us go back to the law. What I have stuck to since the start of this conversation has been Section 137, subsections 1 to 7.
Do you know why that becomes a part of the conversation?
It's about following due process.
Imran,
Imran,
do you know what? Hold on, Imran. Do you know why that comes as part of the conversation?
No, I do not understand.
It's because when you go a few years back, this former Auditor General, Lara Pearce, was the one whose Auditor General's report predicated the GTT report, which led to the formation of the commissions of inquiry set up by your government upon arrival into office. And then she was praised for the professional work exposing corruption, mismanagement of state resources. Again, go back to your GTT report. It was predicated on the Auditor General's report. Fast forward to the time when they're investigating the office of the current president, this whole issue sparks up. So forgive the public for connecting the dots politically and making that a witch hunt.
I hold a fundamentally different view, and I don't see the nexus at all, because at the end of the day, there was a job.
So how was she professional then, but very unprofessional now?
Somebody had a job to execute then. It does not mean that
which your government dubbed professional.
It does not mean that a job was executed and that stays for a lifetime. At every given point, we all have a responsibility to follow the law and follow due process. Ultimately, right? Section 137, subsection 4 quite clearly states the conditions under which you can institute a procedure to remove someone and investigate someone. And it says for either infirmity of body or mind, A, or B, for stated misconduct. A panel was put together. That panel did its job. A report was produced. It was made public. It was not done in secrecy. That report was produced. It was sent to His Excellency the President. His Excellency the President has now removed himself from the process completely. This has nothing to do with the executive arm of government again. I mean, my elementary government from 1 from 2 St. Edward Secondary School, luckily enough, I went to a very good school, tells me about separation of powers, the executive, the legislature, and the judiciary. It is now with the third arm of government, right? The legislature, they have a responsibility. His Excellency the President has no part to play in this. It is down to, and look, 2/3 majority. Let us do the maths here now, right? As we're having these conversations. 2/3 majority now means that members of the APC would ultimately have to side, right? With those recommendations for us to be able to have a 2/3 majority. Now, that's the spirit of Section 137. That's where the safeguard comes in. So it's not as if it's just going to be SLPP MPs who are going to sit in a room, lock themselves in, and have that 2/3 majority. No, it is inconceivable. It has to be by for us to have that 2/3 majority. Now, what the Deputy Minister of Justice has said in public is this, that we would live with the decisions taken by Parliament as it relates to the Auditor General. So whether the decision is for or against those recommendations, those are decisions this government would live with.
Mr. Silla, before we go further or forward, I've just spent the last few minutes reading the entirety of Section 137, which you've been quoting since you stepped into the studio this morning. And you'll be surprised to know, if at all you haven't read this already, that the whole section here is actually talking about judges of the Superior Court of Sierra Leone. And you even quoted subsection 4, which is also talking about judges of the Superior Court of Sierra Leone. And now, you see, the thing is,
I know what I'm talking about.
Now, except
there's a threshold.
Except it is a smoke screen, but I feel you are quoting something that could be quite irrelevant to this discussion, because
so you think
subsection 4, and I think I have read, and from the literature that
you're having a literal interpretation now of the law.
Now, so the thing is, you have been banking on this.
That's a very literal interpretation you're having of the law.
You've been banking on this provision.
I have said
it doesn't talk about an Auditor General being removed.
So you have not been. You have not been. My former boss, Mohammed Rahman Soare, loves to. He loves to say
let's just be clear. That's why I'm doing this.
That's why you have not been following with profit all of the things I have said sitting here. I have stated quite clearly. No, you don't need to show that to me.
Okay.
Right? I know it. You can wake me up at 2 o'clock in the morning. I'll go through all of those sections, section 137, subsections 1 to 7. It is the threshold, the office. The office of the Auditor General is being regarded as that of a High Court judge. Also, and so that threshold in removing a judge applies to the office of the Auditor General. So even though, so that's what I'm saying. You've not been following with profit. Even though it does not literally tell you, let me finish. And this for public consumption. Even though it does not literally tell you about the Auditor General's office, it is the threshold. Yeah, that is what they're using, and it's applicable to the office of the Auditor General.
So this is the very reason why they are calling for a total overhaul. This is why they are calling for a total overhaul, even of the 1991 Constitution of Sierra Leone. There are a lot of lacunas.
But that's a secondary argument we can have completely. Far removed from this, and I'll tell you the reason why.
It is through this instrument that this particular individual or these particular individuals were judged.
You can call for overhaul as much as you want to. We can all sit here and ask for overhaul of the whole of the 1991 Constitution. And we can also sit here and begin to talk about what is happening to the constitutional review process and what the late Justice Edmund Cowan did and all the rest of it. But what we have now in place that we have to live by is the 1991 Constitution. That's the difference, my friend.
Isn't it ironical that all of these civil society organizations, including the, should I say, the most accredited financial or accounting institution in this country, have pointed finger against the government for being biased in this tribunal report. Doesn't it bother you in any way that perhaps there could have been, you know, if even you do not want to believe this, that there could have been some, you know, serious blunders along the way?
So, I mean, again, I think we need to agree on a few points as we move forward. I mean, to your question, do we now accept and concede that that threshold that applies to judges is a threshold that applies to the office holder as the auditor of the Auditor General? We now concede to that point, right? So the premise you raised did not exist in actual fact, number one. Number two, we also have to agree, based on that section 137, subsections 1 to 7, that every single one of those subsections under section 137 was followed through on. Now, if those two assertions are true and correct and valid, your third point and the question you raised is of no consequence. And what do I mean by that? It now means we have followed due process. We have followed the Constitution of the Republic of Sierra Leone. In as much as we may want to change it, in as much as there is a need for constitutional review, in as much as we need to review and bring clarity to sections and certain subsections under the Constitution of the Republic of Sierra Leone, that's the essence of constitutional review.
If you were the people,
but for now, what we have, and you may agree or disagree. Look, it is not every ruling in life that is fair. That is considered fair by some to be fair, to be correct and accurate. But
so essentially, you're saying that not all tribunals should be fair and accurate.
I'm saying it is inherent in the legal profession and in law.
For some.
No. It is inherent. Let me finish. I'm choosing my words carefully. I understand what I'm talking about. It is inherent in the legal profession and in law that for every judgment you have, whether be it at magistrate, whether be it at high court, whether be it at Supreme Court, whether be it at Court of Appeal, for there to be various views, right, and for people to disagree. And that is why people go there. If you're the defendant or the accused, you have your counsel. Your counsel would always hold a different view. But even when verdict is being handed down, they would always. So take, for example, we have the choosing trials. Verdicts have been passed on, not so. For some of those who are arraigned before the courts, not so, on choosing trial. Talk to their lawyers. They will tell you that they disagree with those verdicts, right? And if they have an opportunity, they won't. So it's inherent in the nature of the law, in the spirit of the law, for there to be disagreement.
My point is that not all tribunals tribunal reports
I'm talking about law, not specifically tribunal report.
Now I understand.
It relates to the law.
I
right?
understand.
So what the tribunal was doing was something that relates to the law. I mean,
firstly, I want to go into the issues around the constitutions, and then one of the recommendations from the tribunal report that the Constitutional Review Committee should consider, looking at how to monitor or discipline Auditor General, which we found very disturbing. And what we recommend that if all the Constitutional Review Committee is taking on this recommendation, they should how to strengthen the audit institution, provide clarity on some issues that are not very much clear in the Constitution, and also provide clarity on some existing gaps. Let it don't be that because we have this issue now and it's against the state of Lara and Komon-Tok, then the Constitutional Review Committee should now find a way to punish or discipline Auditor General. For us, it's about strengthening the Constitution, provide clarity, and then where there are gaps and explain that gap. Because for us, what does it mean? It means that trying to limit the operational power of the institutions. All of this issue we are doing not for Komon-Tok and Lara, is for the people of Sierra Leone. Because that institution protects the people's resources. When that institution works well, it will help to reduce corruption. It will help to ensure that there is value for money. So it's about the institution. There are 2 points which I want to bring out quickly around again the report. Of course, anyone doesn't want to talk about the detailed report, that's fine.
I don't want to relitigate. It's not as if I don't want to talk about it, because that's litigation.
We saw again in this tribunal report the absence of clearly cited legal and professional standards. No, the tribunal failed to specify
the legal or professional standards applied to determine whether the Auditor General and the deputy engage in misconduct. In fact, the report, after they outlined the methodology and function of audit service, they went straight into evidence without defining what is the misconduct, let alone what constitutes serious misconduct, without also defining what threshold of that misconduct should tantamount to the removal. The report lacks that one very clearly. And if you are dealing with an issue, you should first of all state what that issue is, what are the things that if you go against, supposed to tantamount to a recommendation for removal and what. So the report also, another one which I'll look at quickly before I respond to some of the issues in one way is the misapplication of the Audit Service Act and the 1991 Constitution. We saw where the tribunal finding of the breach of section 36(1) of the Audit Service Act 1924. We find out that one is very troubling because the offense created at that section of the Act can only be committed by the person from whom the Auditor General seeks information or who are subject to an audit. This clearly cannot be committed by an Auditor General in terms of requesting for information. So therefore, the tribunal, when they conclude at that finding, will find it very much disturbing and very much problematic. Now, just to respond to Imran on the issues, because of course, yes, what he read, it's also applied to the Auditor General, because it says the way to remove the judge is the same way they are also going to remove the Auditor General. So that's one of the reasons why we think the judiciary should have also ensured that there is the principle of natural justice. How can Lara file a case 2 years back, now almost going to 3 years now? That case has not been heard.
Abubakar, because we're running out of time, we'll have to round off this conversation. What's the way forward? Well, clearly, with Imran's position, it tells you that your calls to the government are sort of being ignored because government still remains defensive, that as far as they know, they've not done anything wrong.
Misplaced, I would say. It should be to Parliament now. So it's nothing to do with government. It's now Parliament.
Going forward? And Parliament, by the way, is part of government.
So damn, completely separate.
Still part of government.
It regulates itself.
Our recommendations to 3 institutions: 1, Parliament, the Judiciary, and the Constitutional Committee. But before I get into this, for God's sake, and for let people know that, how can Parliament go and discuss a report that has so many procedural evidential deficiencies?
So what would you rather have the Parliament do?
So for us, in fact, we'll read this one. We say, subsequent to the glaring legal and procedural and evidential deficiency in the tribunal work, as well as the obvious discrepancy and gaps in the report, Parliament should neither dismiss the report or the recommendations, the tribunal recommendation, I mean, because the gaps are so many in this report. Or if Parliament decides to look into this one, we want Parliament to send a report back to the Auditor General to provide more clarification and provide all of the details, the annexes, the evidence, the testimonies, for them to have a clear picture of what is in the report. Because there are a lot of annexes, the state witness, the Lara witness. So we want, if they are looking at it, to send it back to have all of that information before they will now go into looking at that particular report. The second one is on the judiciary. I mean, for God's sake, Lara don't file this case over close to 3 years now. The highest court, the most respected court of the land, takes it enough from the tribunal for looking into that case. They find a lot of fear. And the case where he filed, now the very tribunal in constitutionality itself, the qualification of the member there. So we say, be and let the judiciary speedily look into the case where Lara Pearce filed. Of course, the one on constitutional review committee have already read it in terms of, I mean, if all they are going to look into the recommendation proposed by the report, they should focus on how to identify, how to fill in the gap, identify the area where there are no clarity, not to find a way to reduce the operational independence of the audit institution.
Thank you very much, Abubakar and Imran. Obviously, this is a developing story. We would have to continue following up on the organizations you've been representing and the outcome of the recommendations you've made and steps you would be taking going forward. Thank you, Imran, and thank you, Abubakar, for your time joining us this morning in the program. Now, we're sorry, we'll have to steal a few more minutes of your time this morning for another conversation, brief one. In Studio 2, we have Mohamed Bakar Kamara. So he's actually the brain behind at AYV, and we're going to talk briefly on how that idea came about. Bakar, good morning.
Good morning.
First of all, what uniform are you wearing? What school is that?
I'm putting on Nashir Islamic Primary School at Eastern. You know, Kisi to be precise, you know. I'm from the Eastern, so
Eastern man.
I'm just all right.
So. At AYV, Eastern man.
Good morning, guys.
Bakar, this was your idea. Jokingly just came about in the newsroom. You started this thing, and here we are today. Management gave its approval. People are in their uniforms. What inspired this idea?
Well, for obvious reason, I know we are all familiar with the recent trend online. You know, institutions are doing it. They are putting on their uniforms. Some are using their Manchester jersey or what have you. So we had a privileged conversation in one of our group, and someone suggested, why can't we do the same? I was like, yes, but can we do something different? So we have a debate between ourselves. You know, it was really tough for us to come to the final conclusion. You know, some of these institutions are doing secondary school, but we decided to just flip the coin a little bit and give it some aroma. So we decided to include primary school in it. So the whole idea is for us to use popular phases. People perhaps, viewers are not seeing over there. We have the camera operators, we have the producers, we have so many people that are working at AYV, but they have not been seeing them. But these guys are working, they are doing their best. So let's use them as a face to at least reach out to those kids out there for them to know education is the way to go. And also, we rekindle that primary school vibe. As we know, our foundation starts from primary school. Mm-hmm. So that's the whole idea behind it. You know, this is the first in Sierra Leone, first institution to do both primary and secondary. Other institutions are just doing secondary. So we decided to start with the primary, which is today, and then tomorrow we'll be having the secondary. Hopefully you guys will be in your attires.
Oh yeah, most definitely. I have even started today because, you know, I am so garnished.
This is collegiate.
Yes, it is. No,
it's a secondary school.
No, don't say collegiate. You are disrespecting the nomenclature of the school. Say the West African Methodist collegiate.
Oh, okay. You mean
collegiate school. You know,
interesting, guys.
Yes, and tomorrow I'll be in my government Rokel attire as well. You know, repping these two iconic schools where most of the creme de la cremes have, you know, passed through.
One
you know, people
produced for the Sanko, the other one produced for
I think so. But Med, you know, going forward, you know, we've so beautifully outlined, you know, the things that will be happening today. You know, the ringing of the bell or the tolling of the bell. You know, the assembly. Just take us through.
So we have catalog of events today. So after our wake up salon, 10:30 we'll be having a devotion, and after that we have the band. We have a band. The guys will come around to just ginger up the moment. And of course, we have the bell. And then at around 12, we'll head to the boardroom to have a discussion with the COO. He will address some of the staff here. And after which, around 2 p.m., we have lunch break, where we'll be having some light food around. You know, the essence of all of this, we want to create that camaraderie, that's unifying space for all of us, because we're all young people in AYV. I don't think any one of us here are above 70 or 80. We are within 30s, 25, you know, 40 and so on. So it shows that we are all together. We speak in one voice. When this started as Phoebe just said, it started in just one childish way. And before you know it, management say, you know what, guys, let's move with this idea. CEO comes in, you know, thanks to the management and CEO for their support and to everybody that is contributing. And at first people were like, for can spend for cancel uniform.
It's been quite an expenditure.
Indeed. it was quite expensive, especially some of you guys that went to those expensive schools, not for us, because we know we can get our uniforms.
People like,
you know, but before I came, Elizabeth was just saying, I've spent a lot and this guy did not sew my uniform appropriately. So that's the thing. Even though you spend, but the fun, the excitement, and it also rings a bell. It shows that we appreciate the foundation where we started, which is our primary school. Because the theme of this whole program is focused on education as the foundation for a brighter future. So it tells you the essence of everything. To encourage teachers that are doing well, those primary school teachers, let them continue to do what they are doing. I know it is not easy, their salaries are small, but let them continue. And to you, the people, it shows, this is an evidence. If me as a person, I started from nowhere, now I'm here as a journalist working for AYV. The same thing to you, same applies to Fabian. So it shows that everybody can do it with education. Let's keep doing what we are doing, and we hope people can follow through our social media, and because from today we will be serving guys hot, like different content. Everything is about, and then we'll be having newsreader from 12. We are having 2 readers doing.
I hear the loud bell outside.
Yeah. We have already brought the bell. So at 12 p.m. we are having 1 newsreader that will be representing another school. Another reader will represent another school. So that's the whole process. So it's a full event packed with excitement and interesting moments. So just take a look.
Thank you very much, Mohamed Bakar Kamara, for that update. Obviously, there'll be updates on our social media platforms as well. You'd see pictures of what's going on. Hey, if you feel the need to drop by at AYV at 3 Wesley Street off Pedembe Road, Freetown, to take pictures, feel free, come. Let's take pictures together. If you feel like you want to come in your uniform as well, please, it's okay. Come and we can take pictures together. And it's
people want to see you tomorrow in your uniform.
Tomorrow I am coming fully dressed in my uniform with my senior prefect badge and my prefect badge. I am coming well prepared tomorrow. But would also like to say thanks to management that they gave approval for an idea that started from few staff to become a trend at AYV. And today they're providing lunch, free lunch for staff. Tomorrow as well, free lunch for staff. So thanks to the CEO, Ambassador Anthony Navo Jr., and thanks to our COO, Mesa. You guys are amazing. Thanks for the approval and the support that you're providing to the staff.
Indeed, and we'll continue this business, So I said, Fabian, unfortunately.
Today I'm the boss. Would I not pay school fee inside the gates?
Oh, yes.
No lunch if you've not paid your school fees.
We'll be collecting those soon. Yeah, but just to give you a clear glance, what I'm wearing. This is quite expensive,
For this uncle.
It's a very expensive stuff you're seeing here, and this costs a fortune actually. But you could buy a land at Godrich, and a piece of land. So as you can see, take a close shot at me.
Victor,
tomorrow as well, I'll be using my government Rokel uniform, where I'll be adorned in my head boy badge. I'm not an ordinary man. Yeah.
Victor,
I pity you.
Now, produce for this uncle. Calm down.
Okay, sorry.
But guys, it's all shades of fun, good memories. Let this be a strong message to the pupils. Be very serious, diligent, and committed to learning. Education is very important, regardless of what you want to become. Today, I sit as a journalist.